Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. We're breaking it down for you. You probably will not get it any better. Across the land, this is the election headquarters for the nation. You're the #1 news leader in Africa, Channels Television. My colleagues and I are being with you all day and giving you all the information that you need to know, focusing our attention on this very interesting state where supplementary elections, second ballot of the governorship elections are held. Sokoto, Kano, Bauchi, Plateau, Benue, and Adamawa State. And I bet you with you that there are interesting scenarios playing out. Nauta, Ijoma, and Ladia Keridoluale, they've been on the other side of the room all day. And talking about some of these incidents, also I have Mr. Curtis Adigba, a lawyer and a political strategist. I've been talking to him right here in Lagos. In Abuja studio is Samson Itodo, the executive director of Yiaga Africa. And from Akure in Ondo State is Mr. Abiodun Ajijola, is the national coordinator of Election Monitor. Thank you so much. It's a full house. Ladi Ijoma and Nata. I did say that we should expect the best. I'm not hoping for the worst, but we should be optimistic. But with what we've seen today, Nata, I can see you running through your tablets and what people are saying online. Some of the leading the trends that we are getting is about Nigeria's election. Globally, we're seeing that happening on Twitter. So you can join the conversation. Ladi Ijoma, some of the things that we were talking about before we came back on air is the incident of security and how the communication between the police officers at the polling unit in the polling arena and the ones who are holding arms, because you ask yourself a big question. How come these people were able to perpetrate this evil and they're not being able to be caught or be arrested?
Exactly, that's the question I've been asking, because when you look at the list, I mean the deployment list that the acting IG read out, it seemed very, pretty tight. Very tight. So I wondered what went wrong. But we hear that perhaps they didn't have any communication gadgets. We don't know that for a fact. I don't know, Shane, what do you think?
Well, many of the videos we saw, I mean, for example, I can't get it out of my head, that video from Okota. You know, where you had this solo police officer fighting, trying to fight off 6 thugs. I mean, if he had any kind of communication device, like a walkie-talkie or something, he would have been able to call on the motorized patrol, who are in fact armed, to come to his aid.
But the statutory thing is that I know that about 3 policemen per polling unit. That's the police, not to talk about NSCDC, the customs, the immigration, because you have some of these sister agencies also assisting the police. So if you have 3 policemen per polling unit, far away from the polling area.
I'm sorry, in that particular Okota incident,
it was 1 man.
It was 1 man.
Yeah. But we don't know what happened at the beginning.
You see the man trying to put the ballot
I don't know what, we can't say what happened at the very beginning. Maybe there were others there.
But remember they say you have 3 rings of security, the first ring, inner ring, and outer ring. What happened to all the rings in that?
So that's a big question, because then it underlines the fact, the communication issue. I wish we had that conversation on air, because we had the conversation when we were on that break, and the big question that this brings up is, before anyone could perpetrate this kind of evil, smash ballot boxes, what are the people, the police officers, doing to the extent that they burn, they destroy, they smash, they tear ballot papers?
So if you look at the screen, this is the video that we're talking about.
So see the guy.
So where is the inner ring and the outer ring?
I don't see anybody else other than
in the inner ring.
No, but see, the other thing is, fortunately for in quote, analog society, we have some level of digital people there who get these videos and put out there. You're talking about me looking through my tablet. We have some tweets that are pouring in. Amateur videos of situations in, I think it's Somona.
And it's difficult
somewhere
to use
in Kano,
because it's not something we verify.
And you know, the situation about election coverage is we are not omnipotent. So you could be in one location. So I remember we had this conversation. You could be in one location and just 3 minutes away from where you are, something is happening there. By the time you're getting to that point to say, to verify, like Nanting had to talk to an eyewitness to say, what happened here earlier today? No, so sometimes it's that difficult
in terms of the police and deployment, they should, you see, well, I'm not saying
no, maybe.
You see them drawing a map of what strategic location they should put their people.
The other side
There's planning, so you can't tell us that, they're not omnipotent.
We all live in this country, and what happens in the larger society of our country is the fact that there's a major communication problem within the security setup. And we all know this. In some of the parts of the world that you and I have visited, Ladi, Ujoma, and Nelta, you do know that police do not run helter-skelter, running around to catch thieves or criminals. What they simply do is to communicate with the next, not too far away officers or colleagues of theirs, and they apprehend. You perhaps will not find as much of the roadblocks that you will see just to catch a thief. The communication and the supplied equipment to pin down criminals in their holes. These are some of the things that are being used in order. And this also plays out in our election, where you have 3 layers of policing of the election process. So within the inner ring that Ijoma was talking about, we have at least 3 policemen. So in that sense, those policemen are by law will not carry arms and ammunition within that sense. So the people who have ammunitions, who have almost a superpower to arrest or pull down a situation and an unfortunate situation are far away. So the big question is then, what is happening with the security setup?
Let me comment a little bit here. I think there is a difference between what you hear and what we see on ground. Now, first of all, ask yourself, how do these guys get to go around when there is no movement?
Exactly.
Restriction of movement.
Yes, you've been told that nobody can move. So how do they move around with their arms, you know, to go and cause this problem? And that's why I said there's a difference between what is said and what you find on the ground. Yeah, the General Police can say, oh, we're deploying 15,000 policemen. The truth of the matter is you have to go there and see who is on ground and what they are doing. So that's where the problem lies. And look, it comes back to the source of our problem. That is the quality of the Nigerian. Listen, until we decide to deal with ourselves, the biggest problem in this country is our attitude. Whether it is in our politics, in our business, whatever we do, it comes down to the quality of the Nigerian. And look, Shenwu, you and I met in Washington during the U.S. election. Did you see policemen carrying guns there? Did you see anybody snatching?
Elections in the U.S. are seamless. It's almost...
Look, it's not same. Look, you have people queuing to vote.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is seamless in the sense that you're not shutting down the whole country to have elections.
That is because what they have done is to unbundle that system. In fact, what is said in the U.S. is that you have 50 elections. Because all the states are conducting their elections. In a state like Florida, you have 29 different electoral processes ongoing. And so that's why you don't have a Mahmoud in America announcing the result of the presidential election. What you do is states announce their results and the networks collate.
Yes.
And then tell you, we have a new president, gentlemen.
Yeah.
He's so person. So, but why can't we unbundle our election?
Yeah.
We can't because nobody will accept the result. The state governors who are in control of their state will ensure that their party wins. Look at what happens during the local government election in this country. Where in a place like, let me use the example of Lagos, for instance. In 2015, we had the election in Lagos, and the political parties were running neck to neck. You could see some strength of even the party in the opposition. And then 1 or 2 years down the line, there's a local government election, and one political party disappears completely. Except for Kaduna and one other state, that the parties in opposition got to pick some seats all over the country.
When that takes on.
That's the problem. So, and people keep saying, oh no, because we cannot trust the states to do this. And we keep complaining about this behemoth that we have.
In the United States that you mentioned, Mr. Adigba,
yes,
county officers are elected officers through a political party system. In fact, they are the ones who will conduct elections.
Elections are conducted by Secretary of State.
Yeah.
The Secretary of State is in charge of the election.
Yeah.
And they do it. And why is this working in the U.S. and it's not working here? Because we have human beings who put the interests of the nation and the system.
They have their own flaws, but I mean, look, absolutely.
There are no perfect elections anywhere in the world.
I do think that there must be, after this election, what do you think, Mr. Adigba? There must be a critical table sitting down on assessing our electoral process. It is not acceptable again for us to see any lives lost in an election, bloodletting. It's not acceptable. Destruction of property.
You cannot decree that these things won't happen. because it boils down again to the quality of the Nigerian citizen. That's exactly what I'm saying. Look, there is no law out there that on election day you have to go out and kill somebody. It is the desperation by the politicians and their supporters. You understand what I'm saying? Why can't you go out there and just cast your vote and go home?
Go home.
Why must it be that, look, this is a country where you have 15 people going to a contest, and all of them expect to win at all costs. That's the problem.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Who is to blame for our political process being in this condition? One question. Who is to blame?
I think the major problem is the system and how it's framed. Because the system is so attractive. So that's why we see the desperation in the politicians. So
systems are built by human beings and they're operated by human beings. What is lacking in our own system is the quality of the human being. Let me give you a simple example.
No, but when solid systems are a product of a people.
A solid system that is built over time, gets to take over and begin to bring human behavior into compliance with that system. But when you have not even built the system, let me give you an example. On Lagos Road, for instance, you are going this way, right? You have an arrow that points this way. That means if you are not going this way, don't stay on this lane. If you are going straight, just go straight. Well, you know what we do in Lagos, and it's all over Nigeria. We all pile onto that road that says, if you are going this way. In other words, if I'm not going, you are not going. And this is what we find in every facet of our...
So you need a reorientation of...
That's the point. See, let me tell you, in the United States, for instance, prefects are not appointed. No matter the level of education, you have to contest for that position. Talk to your colleagues. Explain to them why they should vote you in.
Politics start from that level.
Look, and so they grow up seeing contests as a contest of ideas. What we do here, for most of us, the first time somebody runs for election is when he wants to go to the Senate. And then he sees his opponent as his enemy because he sees him as the difference between power and not having power.
I mean, where we've seen some of the biggest politics in education system in the university, student union governments have even been shut out. Because we have a lot to talk about. If we go on and talk about some of the problems in the system, we go on and on. Let's talk about, let's talk some politics and analysis now from what we are going to be saying and what we should be expecting. So let's start with Kano State, everyone. Yes. This laddie, Ijoma and Nelta, join me in this conversation, if you may. We're serving a hot tea, and it's not. It's been hot. The weather is terrific today in Lagos. So the margin between these two men that we saw before the supplementary election is this. So the candidate of the PDP, Abba Kabir Yusuf, polled 1,014,474 votes, and he was in the lead. And Abdullahi Ganduje, the sitting governor on the candidate of the APC, polled 987,819. So the difference between both of them is 26,655 votes. The number of registered voters for the supplementary election is 128,831,000. So 208 polling units. What do you make of this breakdown, Mr. Adiba?
First and foremost, the 128,000 votes that you have is simply number of registered voters. It doesn't speak to the fact that 128,000 voters will come out and cast their vote on that day. Okay? So, but if you look at that figure, and then you look at the difference between the two leading candidates, it comes down to about, there's still about 122,000 or so outstanding votes, right?
Yeah.
Now, whoever takes the chunk of that vote will be elected.
Does this account for the kind of desperation or the kind of scenario we saw today in Kano State?
Look,
the kind of reports coming out of Kano.
Sheung, this 122,000 votes is like pints of blood for these politicians. They need it in their bloodstream to stay alive. We've said these things here. Look, the reality of our situation is that so long as political office makes the difference between who is a poor man and who is a rich man in our society, we will continue to have this battle. When we then make service to the people as the cornerstone of our political pursuit, and then we shield the public treasury from political office holders, such that, you know, it is no longer there. Look, in most of the states of the Federation, there is no difference between the personal accounts of these governors and the state accounts. And we're talking about in other parts of the world. Look at the governor of Maine, United States, for instance, whose wife is working in a restaurant to augment the family earnings. That's a governor. There is no first lady in Nigeria that will work, no matter how poor that state is. Ijoma, don't worry. Very soon you become a first lady.
Not the first lady. You can talk about the child or something else.
Don't worry, you're going to be first lady soon.
And we'll see whether you stop.
So that's the point, Seun.
Okay, so let's bring Biodun Adejola in. Biodun, what can you make of what we're seeing when a sitting governor is trailing an opposition with about 26,000 votes? And what we've seen today, from your understanding of the Kano politics, what is your take?
Yeah, thank you very much once again. You know, couple of things. First of all, we have to look at the number of, you know, registered voters, which you have given us as 128,572. But Kano had 87% PVC collection rate. Because, as you know, PVCs were collected up to the 11th of February this year. So Kano had 87%. Of course, the collection in each polling unit varies. The percentage collection in each polling unit might not be exactly 87. It may be higher, it may be lower, depending on the polling unit. But the state average was 87%. So if you take just, you know, a rough estimate of 87% of 128,572, that gives you 111,858. So you're looking at over 110, 112,000 probable PVCs available to do this election, and then you have 26,000 votes separating the two. So it's quite a large number of probable number of PVCs that have been collected vis-a-vis the margin. So I think a lot can happen. But also, you know, and I want to also bring this in about the issue of context, because many times when we read the social media sometimes can be a little bit, it can make one event very big. Now, I know a lot of issues came from Kano's perspective. Kano had 29 local governments, right, that had election today, 76 wards or registration area, 208 polling units. So what does this mean? This means that if you have issues from maybe 10, 20 polling units, we should be careful before, like, for example, I saw on the internet some saying there's no election in Kano. You have 208 polling units, over 29 local governments. So the question you need to ask is, the issues that were, you know, the areas that had issues, was it the whole 208 polling units? You know, how many of these polling units actually had issues? This is very significant because what we usually have a challenge sometimes is that because negative news travels, people, once there's an issue, it gets more, you know, attention. But I think there are a lot of places in Kano that conducted election peacefully. There are areas that were very violent, but I think we have to put in context the places that were violent against the total number of places. But of course, Okay,
let me bring in Samson Itodo here. Samson Itodo is not a political analyst. He's more or less an election observer and a lawyer. But Samson, if this man were to get anything out of this election, he needs to overcome this 26,000 first and foremost. That is, if this man does not get anything out of this 128,000. What comes to your mind if you look at these figures and this breakdown?
Well, thank you very much. A lot actually comes to mind. I'm talking about how do you swing the votes.
you can see in the build-up to this election, the APC candidate, which is the incumbent governor, had concentrated his campaigns in specific wards where you have the largest number of registered voters, and Gama was one of them. You know, Nasarawa was also one of the local government that was contentious in the first round of the elections. And so what did we see? We could, as you can see, media reports have it that there were community empowerment programs that were implemented over the last couple of days. Boreholes were sunk. You also see
so invariably it was
the primary
better
healthcare center being built.
The best place to be in the last few days will be Gama and Nasarawa local government area.
Yes, and I cracked a joke and I said, oh wow, maybe we should have elections every quarter so people can benefit from the dividends of democracy if they are getting the attention that they are getting today. So what you're seeing is on both sides, and both on the PDP side, there being massive voter enticement or voter inducement in this election. And so for Kano, beyond all the shenanigans and the tricks that the political parties have deployed, it's also going to be determined by the highest bidder. So they are focusing on Gama and Nasarawa, where you have a large concentration of voters. And see, is it possible to secure majority of votes in those places to dislodge the 23,000 votes, which is the margin of lead. And if it is not possible, and as you can see today, Shenwin, this morning, the thugs that were deployed by these political parties were preventing voters from accessing the polling units. In strongholds of one of the parties, you see another party actually strategically deploying thugs to undermine the votes in those areas, so voters would not come out and vote, so that in their own strongholds they would have more votes that would upstage the margin of lead that you currently have. And that is going to be very, very problematic. And Kano is a state that we need to watch closely. How the results are collated it will determine a lot in this election. And that's why the results collation centers should be accessible. I see no reason why, considering the contentious nature of the election in Nasarawa local government, that the security agencies will prevent observers, duly accredited observers, from accessing the polling, the collation centers. Because we know, and that is where results are changed. Sheon, we need to be very, very careful, because in the presidential and the governorship election, we've seen where collation officers arbitrarily alter results and go ahead and make declarations, because Section 68 of the Electoral Act is clear that once declarations are made, only the tribunal and the court can nullify that declaration.
Even the ones made under duress.
And the commission also needs to ensure oversight.
It's interesting because we've seen a lot of things playing out. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Adigba. So, no, but INEC had said that the result was made on one instance was made under duress.
That's why INEC trust deficit is self-inflicted. In the sense that, look, you take a position in Imo State by saying, oh, you're not going to accept that because the man or woman alleged that he acted under duress. Now, in Bauchi, you also accepted the same story and then said there was going to be election. Then a few days down the line, you said, oh, you're going to resume collation. Do you understand? So when you appropriate and reprobate, in a similar situation,
you see inconsistency.
You create problems for yourself.
That's what you see, an inconsistency.
Yes, but let me talk about Kano a little bit more. You know, the Kano voters are very sophisticated. And all you need to do is to look at the history of voting in Kano. In 2003, the senator from Kano now, I think Kwakwanso was the governor, he lost to a challenger in Shekarao.
Yeah.
You know, and Shekarao, I think, was the first person to win 2 terms consecutively in the history of Kano politics. Yes. Then Kwakwanso again came back, okay, and now we're having Ganduje, who happens to be his deputy, deputy when he was governor. And so they're falling apart, and what you see is a proxy a proxy contest between Kwakwanso, you know, his political ideology of Kwakwansia, and then that of Ganduje. So the point is, everywhere in the world, there's an attempt to suppress votes.
Yeah.
The difference in Nigeria is we're using violence to stop people from voting.
That's the sad part of it.
That's the only thing.
Let's move quickly, because we have other states that we need to touch on. Let's move to this state, Plateau State. Interesting one, isn't it? So you see, the incumbent is in the lead with just about 44,000. Not just. 44,000 is a big margin, isn't it? Ladi will make jest of me because he's not very... His trust in me when it comes to mathematics is very, very... He doesn't have any trust in me. Ladi thinks that I don't know mathematics at all. So the margin between these two men...
Let's just say I'm happy you're not a collation officer.
I would have needed a torchlight and a ruler.
Would have done a fifth run.
I would have needed a torchlight and a ruler. So we see Jeremiah Husseini, a former general, who is giving this man a run for his money. Plateau State, an interesting one. That state in the presidential election was won by the PDP.
By the PDP, and which is, of course, historical. Going down memory lane and looking at the history of contests in Plateau State. But here's the problem. Look at the margin.
44,000.
44,000. I mean, 44,000. Yeah, look at their standing votes.
Yes, 48,000.
If we take the average
of
voters turnout, which is in the region of 40 to 45%, you are then going to have about half of that turnout.
Let's say about, let's say
24,000 or 25,000.
Okay.
Or maybe because it's supplementary and the stakes are higher, probably you have about 30,000.
Turnout.
What
in 40 polling units.
In 40 polling units. Now, it means that the PDP candidate will have to win everything. And even if he does, winning 30,000 extra, he will not be able to overturn the margin.
That's Herculean.
So as far as I'm concerned, is a done deal
for Plateau State.
For Plateau State.
Okay. Maybe we should move swiftly. So in some of the things that you see, Herculean, that's what you say, for the 8,000 votes to fight for over 40,000 is the margin between both the APC and the PDP. In 40 polling units, 19 registration areas, and 9 local government areas. That is going to be not so much of a talking point, but perhaps we should move forward. Let's now go here. Benue State. Well, I understand we will go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Benue State. This is an interesting one. Some people believe it's a done deal, but we'll give you perspective to it when we return from this break.